We're also looking for volunteers in the area of health and safety services. Want to talk about that?
Sure.
We're learning two things: what the Red Cross does and how you can help them in these areas.
In health and safety services, our volunteers typically do a lot of the training that we talked about. So they are the ones who go out and teach the first aid and the CPR courses and teach people how to swim and how to be babysitters. We do have some paid staff who do that work, but the majority are volunteers.
What are some of the logistics support that you need in the area of health and safety services?
Those are people who help us get classes scheduled and get instructors onto the calendar to make sure that everyone has what they need. Those logistics support people also help to make sure that everyone gets the certification materials that they want to have to show that they've done this course and they are Red Cross trained.
Now, you also need folks in the area of volunteer and community services. Want to talk about that?
Sure. So because we rely so heavily on volunteers, we have a group of people who help to maintain and reward and interact with our volunteer base. Across the country, more than 90% of the Red Cross workforce are volunteers. And so volunteers.
That's a pretty impressive figure.
Yeah, it's amazing, and they work so hard. They're so talented and so dedicated, and so we want to make it a priority to make sure that they feel valued in the organization and that they have the resources that they need to be able to do their jobs as volunteers. So we have staff as well as additional volunteers who help to make sure that that happens.
And these probably locally would be, no matter where you live, these are the people that you would see if there's a fire or something, that they're out there helping the families move or getting them shelter, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of volunteers in local communities who do that sort of disaster relief work. Rather than get deployed somewhere else in the country, they make themselves available on a moment's notice to show up in the middle of the night if a home has been, burned out or flooded, or a tree has fallen through the roof. Really, any kind of natural disaster that could happen locally, those volunteers are out there to do that.
It looks like you need some, in that category, you need some IT support in the area of database management.
Yes, because there's so many volunteers, such a huge number, we certainly want to be able to keep track of all of them, and so we do have a variety of data-related work. So there's really room for all skill sets. If you want to be out on the ground, helping a family, we have a way for you to do that. If you'd prefer to be behind a desk doing something that helps the organization from an IT perspective, we have room for that too.
Now, you need volunteers for special projects. What would be a Red Cross special project?
Special project. Well, I'm sure in different Red Cross chapters, there's different projects all the time. I know that in the Albany area, and I believe probably in some other Red Cross locations as well, we're spending a lot of time right now on surveying our volunteers, finding out about their satisfaction and what we can do to make their experience better. So that's a special project that we've undertaken, and we've had volunteers helping us coordinate that, making phone calls to their colleagues, and just kind of gathering that feedback for us.
I've had the honor of broadcasting from a lot of your blood banks in the capital region, and I've seen your blood services, and you really need a lot. I didn't realize all those people are volunteers. Boy, you guys do good.
Yeah, generally the people who are actually collecting your blood are trained professionals, and they are part of our staff.
Right.
But the people who are checking you in at the blood drive, getting you all the information you need, sitting with you when you're done, and making sure you've eaten your snack and drink your water. Those people generally are all volunteers.
They also feed disc jockeys who broadcast.
Oh, well, that's good.
We love those people.
Having you there probably draws a lot of people in to donate, so I'd say you're deserving of snacks and water.
You're also looking for volunteers in the area of financial development. Want to talk about that a little?
Sure, yeah. We really rely on the generosity of the public to be able to do all this work, and so it's on our plate to fundraise to support our mission. The Red Cross is not a government-funded agency or a United Way agency, other than in locations where they have a distinct partnership with the United Way. So we need to raise money from local businesses and individuals who are willing to support our work. And volunteers can help with that effort in a number of ways, really by helping us to identify the types of people, the donors who might want to be involved with the Red Cross, and also in helping us to put some of the events and activities that we use to raise money together. So we, all over the country, have groups of event committees, generally made up entirely of volunteers who plan galas and award ceremonies and golf tournaments and all those kinds of things that you think of as fundraisers. And then they also can help us do a lot of data entry, help us get thank you notes and phone calls out to the people who support us, because we want to be building those relationships and making sure that if you give to the Red Cross, you know that we really appreciate that.
One thing I was not aware of, and as you said, people think of the Red Cross for a couple of things, that you help the senior citizen community. I was not aware of that. What do you do for senior citizens?
Yes, it depends on where you are in the country. Some Red Cross chapters are involved with this, some are not. But in the Albany area and in other locations across New York State, we help the state run its ombudsman program for people who reside in long-term care facilities.
Okay.
So basically, if you or a loved one were to check into a long-term care facility, you'd be informed that the Red Cross helps to facilitate the ombudsman program. And if you have an issue with the care that you're receiving or the care that a loved one is receiving, you can come through the Red Cross to handle that issue in a very confidential and safe environment.
Sort of similar to what you do with the military to a degree.
Yes, very much so. You know, our goal is just to make sure that people are treated well in whatever living condition they may be in. And, you know, it may be difficult for people to come forward with issues, and so we want to be a resource for them to be able to do that.
Now, being here in the capital of the Empire State and also being in New York State, there's a lot of politics, and you are looking for people to deal with our government leaders.
Yes, in the Albany area, we have the opportunity to participate in Lobby Day every year and get to talk to our legislators from all over the state about the work that the Red Cross does and the type of support that we need, whether that's, you know, funding from state legislators or just support for certain bills. I know they consider bills that relate to health and safety and things that we are involved in, as well as preparedness. So the more that we can work with our government leaders to help get people prepared and informed, the better that we can do our jobs.
Now, how do you find the government? This is a tough time for not-for-profits, and obviously the Red Cross, like any other not-for-profit, is looking for government grants. How is that going right now? Tough?
You know, at least in the Albany area, I know that we do receive funding from the state, and you know that the amount of that funding every year depends on what there's room for in the budget. But it's not the majority of what funds our work. The majority of our funding comes from those local individuals and those local businesses who want to get behind what we do in their communities. And so that's really our primary focus when it comes to fundraising. We don't spend as much time seeking the government funding because there are so many, you know, other opportunities that we need to pursue to make sure that we can do all of what we do.
And I see you're looking for volunteers in the area of administrative support, volunteer leadership, receptionist, finance and accounting, database management, against special projects. Talk about that a little bit.
Yes, I mean, you know, our offices really couldn't run without volunteers.
Right.
Almost every Red Cross chapter that you walk into, the first person that you'll see is generally a volunteer working the reception desk, making sure that people are getting their calls and that if a donor walks in the door, they know where to go to either give blood or give a gift. They also process incoming volunteers and help make sure that they get connected to the department from the, you know, from your list here that they want to be involved in. As far as other special projects, really, that could be anything. I know out in Central New York, they are doing a big preparedness and resiliency initiative, and really we're starting to do that in the Northeastern New York area as well, focus on resiliency in communities and sort of the...
Talk about the resiliency a little bit.
It really refers to sort of the full disaster cycle, so going from preparing a community before an event may happen to being able to help them respond in an event to making sure they're able to recover after an
Pick
event.
yourself up after.
Right, exactly. And so I think for a long time the Red Cross has been sort of the come in after a disaster happens and make sure that people are taken care of in those immediate days following an event. Make sure that they have shelter and food. And we're trying to do a little bit more at this point to raise the funds for and then be able to go out and be a part of the longer term recovery process. And in order to do that, we want to make sure we're involved before the disaster strikes. So that's where the resiliency cycle comes into play. And volunteers are helping us with that by helping us kind of convene some community conversations, getting people from government agencies, other nonprofit agencies, and the Red Cross together to talk about what can we all do to make communities better prepared and more resilient.
And the last category where you're looking for volunteers, and I can't believe this because you're so good at it, is communications, and you need volunteers to help with events and press conferences and things like that. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I appreciate your compliment, but communications is an area where we very much need volunteers. We send out information to the press after every disaster that we respond to, and in most communities that's pretty much every day that we're responding to a small fire or a flood somewhere in a local community. And so it's really a 24/7 cycle, and we need people not only who can go out and help the people affected by those disasters, but who can help us get the word out about what we've done, because that in turn drives people to think of the Red Cross and realize that we do need their support.
Also, you're very good with setting out your blood bank calendar. That's the one that we see, a lot from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, really, at all times, we want to keep the public informed about what we're doing and how they can help us. And so communications is a huge part of that, and we can always use volunteers to help with that.
We've only got a couple minutes left. Is there anything else about the Red Cross that you would like our viewers to know today, and how they can get involved with the Red Cross?
I think the number one thing is that we do need the support of the public to carry on our work, and that can be in any number of forms. We need blood donors, like we talked about. We need financial donors to be able to pay for all of the work that we do. Although our volunteer workforce is so large, those people need training and they need resources, so there's a huge amount of financial assistance that's needed to keep us running. And then we really could use the help of more and more volunteers. We do have the great people who are available 40 hours a week to help us out, but we realize that that's not the case for everyone, and so the more we can build up our workforce of volunteers, the more we can provide services in your community.
And people can contact you through your website, right?
Yes, redcross.org is really the number one place to go for information. You can type in your zip code and get local Red Cross chapter locations and contact numbers. And
well, we're out of time. Kimmy Tavarez, Director of Communications for the American Red Cross, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Joe Kahn, and think of the Red Cross today, and have a wonderful day.